Saving money should feel straightforward. It should be pay all of your expenses and the rest is savings, but it's not always that simple.
You ever look at your bank statement and wonder, where did all the money go?
Or even with a written budget, the last 10 days of the month, are you struggling to figure out how you're going to pay the bills because there seems to be more month than there is money?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just not saving money at the rate that you expected to be able to save money. If any of these scenarios is you, stick with us because we're going to give you some ideas of how to find these holes in your budget, figure out where the money is going. Then we're going to give you some practical tools to be able to fix those situations so that you are saving the amount of money that you really would like to save.
If you don't know us, I'm Larry.
I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we bring you videos on practical frugality.
Area number 1, impulse purchases. We all do it. We're at work. We're walking through the hallway. All of a sudden, that vending machine is calling our name. We became aware of this years and years and years ago when we couldn't figure out where some of the money was going. And I said, are you visiting the vending machine? And he said, yes, sometimes. And I said, let's just track it. Let's figure out how much money is going to these impulse purchases, because once you track it and you figure out where it's going, then you can deal with it.
The bottom line is small, unplanned purchases can add up very quickly. That one-time cup of coffee or that candy bar over a week's time can add up big time in your yearly amounts.
Need some examples? We have some for you. Let's talk about coffee, because that was what Larry mentioned. The average Starbucks costs about $3. Now that's across the United States. Your Starbucks may be a little bit more or a little bit less than that. 1 in 5 workers swings in to purchase a cup of coffee 5 days a week on their way to work. But what does that $3 cup of coffee really mean over the course of a month or over the course of a year? It may be more than you think.
Over a year, it can actually add up to $750 if you're buying coffee 5 days a week. That is a pretty good chunk of your budget.
But if you take the time to make that coffee at home, get yourself a good coffee thermos and take it with you to work, you'll be saving over $600 a year.
Do you need another example? Here we go. 1 in 10 workers buys out lunch every day, and 50% of those will spend $20 on their lunch.
That means over the course of a year, you're spending $5,200 on lunch. Bring that lunch from home. You can make a dynamite lunch for around $2.50 and bring it from home every day. When you do that, you're saving over $4,000 over the course of a year.
One more example. 1 in 10 workers eats breakfast out every day, and that breakfast can cost on average $10. That's $2,600 a year. You can save a lot of money by eating breakfast at home or taking it to work for just $1 for each breakfast. That's a savings of $2,340 a year.
And just for fun, let's add up all 3 of the examples that we just gave you. When you forego the coffee at Starbucks, when you bring lunch from home, when you bring breakfast from home, that means that you are putting back in your pocket $7,500 a year. Here's the bottom line on all of this. Do the math. We trick our brain into believing that those little amounts of money that we're spending along the way don't make a difference. But the truth is, when you add them up, oftentimes they do. And when you do the math and you see the numbers in front of you, you cannot unsee them.
Another aspect of this is the creeping cost of variable expenses. And these would be like gasoline for your car. It creeps up all the time. Insurance rates go up all the time. There are always these little increases that just kind of sneak their way into your budget, costing you more money and reducing the amount that you can save.
Utility bill, that's another good example.
Yes.
These expenses, because they're that slow creep, we don't tend to notice them over a longer period of time. The way to avoid having these expenses eat away at the amount of money that you're saving every single month is to make sure that you are tracking at least quarterly what you are spending on all of these areas that are variable. And while you're doing the math, it can seem a little bit overwhelming to figure out where you're going to cut if the math isn't adding up the way that you would really like it to. If you want some ideas on where you can cut back and save on expenses, grab our free guide to reducing expenses. I give you lots of step-by-step instructions as well as checklists. It's free. I'll make sure that there's a link to request the guide in the description of the video.
Another aspect of reducing your savings is cash spending. This is money that you have in your pocket, in your wallet, in your purse that you may not be accounting for when you're making small purchases. Therefore, it's not really going into your expenses, and it's kind of like a little slow leak. It's causing your savings to be reduced.
I'm just going to prove my point here. When you are getting that money out of the ATM, and you are putting it in your wallet, what are you calling that? You need a little bit of what? Spending money.
Yes.
That's what we call it because that's what it is. It's spending money. But what happens is if you put that $40 in your wallet, 4 weeks later, you're going, well, I thought I had two 20s in there. And what you've got left is like, 3 ones, one $5 bill, and a little bit of change. And you have no idea what happened to all the rest of that money because there is no paper trail.
Here's one way I've chosen to kind of fix that problem. I keep a little notebook. It has a pen already attached to it. And when I spend some money on cash and I don't have it tracked using our debit card, then I write that expense down here, and that way I can give it to Hope, who then puts it in to our monthly budget, and we have now accounted for that cash spending.
Area number 4 that may be draining your savings, and that is paying for convenience. Whenever you purchase something that is done for you, generally the amount of work that people do is consistent with the price that you're going to pay for something. So the more work that you have to do, then the lower the price, and the less work that you have to do, the higher the price. Prime example are cut up produce from the grocery store or those pre-made meals from the grocery store. I've seen an explosion of pre-made meals section in the local grocery stores recently, and it's because people are willing to pay for convenience. Now, there's nothing wrong with paying for a little convenience now and then, but I think you have to ask yourself a couple of really pertinent questions. That is, why am I buying it in this form? And do I really need to have it in this form? Do I have the ability to cut this up, to prepare it? Do I have the time to do that? Is it worth trading convenience for dollars?
Yeah. Another item is not taking irregular expenses into consideration. Now, one example of an irregular expense is holiday spending. This is gift money or money that you might use for decorating for an occasion over at your house. It's really easy to just throw money into those, buy what you need to make it all look right, and you really haven't tracked it well, nor have you planned for that spending.
At the first of the year, you want to make sure that you have a calendar for the year. You're putting down occasions that you know are coming up where you're going to have to spend some money. Then you're going to figure out the number of months between where you're at right now and when that expense is going to have to be spent. You're going to divide that total amount of time by the number of months. You're going to set a specific amount of money aside for every month leading up to that occasion. You hold the cash in hand, guys, in order to pay for that occasion or pay for that bill that's coming due. Another good example is paying for insurance. We pay for insurance once a year because if you pay yearly instead of monthly or quarterly, you will pay less. But in order to do that, we know about what the insurance is going to be when it comes due in July, and we have taken the number of months between where we're at and July, divided it by that number of months, and we're setting a specific amount aside every month to have the cash in hand to pay it in July.
An item that's so common for all of us to fall into is lifestyle inflation. This is when you get a raise at work and you just throw that money into something new that you would like to do in your lifestyle that will complement your fun and your enjoyment, but you really haven't tracked it and you really haven't thought very carefully about what maybe you could have done.
To avoid what is also known as lifestyle creep, then you are going to take the extra amount of money that is coming in every single month and you're going to carefully think about where you want to allocate those funds. There is nothing wrong if you get a windfall with saying, we're going to take a certain amount, a percentage. We usually did percentages.
Yeah.
We're going to set that aside. We're going to do something fun. We're going to take that weekend trip. We're going to go out to that restaurant. We're going to do something that genuinely impacts sort of our quality of life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But generally, the problem is that people take that whole amount and they just start sort of upgrading their lifestyle all along for the entire month. So think about it carefully, divide it by percentages. And it worked pretty well for us to say 10 or 20% is going to go towards something special. The other 80%, it's going straight toward whatever our current financial goals are.
Here's another category that's easy to fall into, and we all typically do this when we get into a little too much of a hurry to purchase something, and that's we fail to compare prices. Comparing prices is very important. You want to get the best deal so you're not spending as much money as you would otherwise. If you compare prices at other stores or on websites, then you can get the lowest price and make your money go further.
Area number 8, this is one a lot of people don't consider, and that is automating savings. The money you don't see is the money you don't spend. So if you are putting money directly into a separate savings account, we just started doing this last year. We have a separate account where we transfer $300 at the first of every single month. It's to pay for unexpected dental expenses or to pay for expenses associated with our medical bills that is simply not covered by insurance. We don't spend that money. It's a completely separate account, but it's funded at the first of every month. $300 goes directly in there. So we can visually see. Here's why this is important. You can visually see how quickly that fund is growing, especially if you're setting that money aside for a specific purpose. It's important for you to always keep tabs on how much money is in there and how much is available.
Being brand loyal can also cause you to lose some money that you could otherwise save. It's really easy for Hope and I to stick to a certain brand that we're used to.
Oh, yeah.
It's got good quality, we've gotten good use out of it, and to a certain degree, that's okay. But it's also good to consider generics. Generics are often made by major brands anyway. They're the same quality, but they've just reduced the price in order to make it generic. And you can consider this with pantry supplies, cleaning products, and with medications, especially medications. Make sure if the doctor's subscribing something to you, he's subscribing the generic if it's available.
And this goes for generics except Doritos. Now, if you don't get that joke, you need to watch the video that we just produced a couple of weeks ago where I interviewed my 2 youngest sons and gave them scenarios about whether it was frugal or whether it was cheap. And they had this entire discussion about why
Doritos.
Name brand Doritos,
Yeah.
that's where they draw the line. You got to have name brand Doritos. Apparently other snacks are okay, but Doritos are where they draw the line. I'll make sure that I'll leave a link to that video, guys. It's a totally fun video. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video for you.
And just as an aside from that, I can go with the generic personally because I can
Totally
get
fine.
the same bag of chips at Aldi's for about $1.25 rather than spending $5 for a 14-ounce bag of Doritos. Oh my goodness.
Or we wait, because we don't pay for our kids' snacks, or we wait for them to get home, and then we sort of
Can we have a
like,
can we have a potato chip?
is it possible for us to have a little Dorito or two? I'm just saying, you want name brand Doritos? That's another way to do it. Just wait for your kids to get home with their name brand Doritos and
Yes.
ask them for a little bit of their Doritos.
We make sure that we're treating them with our food too, so it goes both ways.
I feed them all the other meals except apparently their name brand Doritos.
Well, I mean special foods. I mean special foods that they really like. Yeah.
All right, area number 10, not periodically reviewing regular purchases. This is something that we have personally fallen into some, where we go, oh, it's a regular purchase. We're just going to keep making it, keep making it, keep making it. And what you need to do, and you'll notice that we keep mentioning do this quarterly, because for us, we set quarterly goals. And that's a great time once every 3 months to take kind of a deep dive into our finances and figure out what's working and what's not. And when we started doing that, we figured out we needed to look at these regular expenses and say, why are we really spending that money? Is that product or service really meeting a need that we still have? Is this something that we can cut back on, or is it something we just want to let go and we can cut it out altogether?
Yeah.
When we gave you examples of the impact of those daily habits, of the coffee, of the breakfast out, of the lunch out, one of the things that I mentioned was you can save significant amount of money by taking your lunch from home, and it will only cost you about $2.50 a day to pack a really nutritious lunch. If you're questioning that number, we did a video where we went over those same statistics, but we gave you several examples of lunches, hot lunches and cold lunches that we have put together for $2.50 or less per lunch. I'm going to make sure that that video is right over there. Go take a look at that video next.
Have you ever looked at your bank statement and wondered, where did all the money go?
I'm sorry, that was funny.